What's up, Super Dads? So here with just the Tip Tuesday, and it's a little bit about motivation today, since that seems to be such a concern for the members of the group. It's about topics that touch on it. So I want to talk I'll try to keep it short, but there's a study that was published in 2015, okay, and it was called "SAD as a Matter of Choice: Emotional Regulation Strategies in Depression," okay, and it was published by Milgram et al. So feel free to look it up. I'll probably put the link up above in the description. But basically, what they found was this: people who are depressed, who are clinically depressed or who describe themselves as depressed, were more likely, when shown images that made them feel sadder, to choose to review those images than were people who weren't depressed or who weren't in a sort of negative mental space. And then they repeated it, and they did it with music. So music that makes people feel happy versus sad. While people who were depressed were more likely to choose music that made them feel sadder. And then they did it again with cognitive strategies. So strategies for either making yourself feel better or worse. So they taught them how to make themselves feel better or how to make themselves feel worse through patterns of thought. And then they got them to choose which one that they wanted to engage in. And people who were depressed, they chose the strategy that made them feel worse. So it seems nuts, right? Somebody who's depressed, somebody who's in a negative mind state, wouldn't they want to get out of that state? Wouldn't they want to improve the way that they feel? And that's a sort of rational belief that betrays a rational belief about how human beings work. Unfortunately, we aren't rational creatures. We're emotional creatures primarily. And what the researchers predicted, and I'm going to add a little bit of my own take onto this, so it ends up in basically being two takeaways. One is that we are more comfortable with the known, even if the known is very uncomfortable, because the unknown, evolutionarily speaking, could have been death. So we would rather be depressed if we're familiar with being depressed than improve our mood, because that is unfamiliar. So the misery of the familiar is better than the unfamiliarity of the new, of the novel. So that's one thing. So when you're feeling shitty, or when you're like, I'm not doing the things I want to do, you're doubling down on what you know, because what you don't know appears threatening in some way. Another takeaway from this is that we create the identity that we carry around with us, with all of our actions and all of our cognitive behaviors and all of the words we say about ourselves. And so if you're, saying like, I'm not motivated, if you're saying, I'm lazy, if you're saying, I don't like exercise, or I have a sweet tooth, or all of these things, right? Every time you say that kind of thing, especially out loud, you are reinforcing an identity for yourself that you are then going to be honor bound, in a sense, to defend, even against your own best intentions. And so you will find that you encounter a lot of friction, a lot of resistance when it comes time to potentially disavow or act against, in opposition to, the identity that you've created for yourself. So if a person is clinically diagnosed as having depression, they're more motivated to sink further into depression because they identify themselves as depressed. And emotionally, it is less painful, less taxing to double down on the identity you have, even if that identity doesn't serve you. So be extra careful about how you create that identity for yourself, because you're creating the chains that are going to hold you in the future. Okay, I hope that there's something useful in here for you, and whatever it is, you can do it as long as you do it one step at a time.